Opinion on Frank Dux as a martial artist. What do you think about him?
Oh, in his heyday, he was no joke. He was
Okay.
no freaking joke.
Hey guys, in this video, this interview segment with David Richardson, we're going to find out, and he's going to talk about training in Dux Ryu and also Bujinkan and the differences with that kind of ninja training. Before we get into that, it's 2024, so Happy New Year. Let me tell you something real quick that can change your life for the better in every way possible. We'll have New Year's resolutions, so let's get started. I know a lot of you want to be healthier and get in better shape, and the good news is that it's entirely up to you. Creating a strong physical body will lead to discipline and a strong mind. Strong mind and discipline will help you accomplish everything you want in life. As many of you know, I am associated with the First Form Supplement Company, and the reason for that is that I actually use and love their products. And like everyone else, I like to recommend what I use and have had good experience with. Now, First Form is much more than just a supplement company, though. They're also a lifestyle brand. The values they preach have to do with becoming the best version of yourself, not strictly for yourself, but for your family, friends, and community. Being an example, raising the bar, and uplifting others. Check out CEO Andy Frisella's podcast sometimes, highly recommended though sometimes controversial with his topics. Anyway, this week you will have an opportunity to enter the Physique Transformation Challenge, which is 8 weeks long, where you will have a chance to win $25,000. The much bigger win though is getting your life back on track by way of discipline, health, and physical fitness. It's truly empowering towards every aspect of your life. To enter the challenge, just download the First Form app and submit your pictures by next Sunday, January 7th. With the app, you will be set up with a real-life advisor who will help keep you accountable and help you with your diet and fitness. It is really a steal to be set up for success with a real-life person on the other end that will advise you for just $12.99 a month. And if you're not willing to spend $12.99 a month to completely transform your life and get the help that you need, what are you willing to do? How serious are you? Do you want to wait until 2025 or 2026 or beyond to finally take action? Or do you want to look back at this time next year and be grateful for the decision you made today? And if you're watching this after that transformation challenge has ended and you can't submit your pictures, you should still download the app. Get your life on track. A lot of people like to do that starting January 1st, but if it's April or May or whenever, you do it for yourself. Let's go back to Dux Ryu. So when you started training there, how was the training?
Intense.
Oh, yeah.
Intense. And we're talking about now someone had just got out the Marine Corps. I just got out the Marine Corps, and I joined Dux Ryu, and I'm telling you, the training was off. And let's not forget about the black belt test. That was a whole nother world in itself. In fact, I failed the first time. But yeah, very intense, very intense.
Well, I got to ask about the black belt test now. So how long were you training in Dux Ryu before you got to test for the black belt in that system?
I started training in Dux Ryu in 89. I was ranked in my first Dan in 1996. I failed the first time, like I said, and I passed the second time. It's a 3-day test, though. We're talking, and I call it the 3-day test of hell. We're talking everything when it comes to pain, when it comes to breaking you down, making sure that you're at your bare essentials. Because if you think about it, anybody can do a technique perfect or whatever it is, a flow, what have you, perfect when you're fresh. But when you're tired and hurting and you want to give up, can you do it then? Which makes sense. In a real situation, that's where you're going to be. You're not going to be all fresh. You're in a real situation, you're going to be so tired and hurting and fear and all that stuff is going to come into play. So, and that's what I got a lot of when it came to pressure testing my techniques. Pressure testing and aliveness is very, very important when it comes to real combat.
Do you consider Dux Ryu ninjutsu or not, though?
I do not consider Dux Ryu ninjutsu. It's not a traditional ninjutsu in itself. But we got Koryu and we got Gendai. Koryu being more of a traditional aspects, something that was historical. And then you got Gendai, which is more of a modernized. So they've taken some traditional aspects and applied it to modern combat. But do I consider it historical, traditional ninjutsu? No, it's not. Which is, I think that's the reason why Dux decided to spell it with an I instead of a U. When you hear this, when you see the spelling, It's not ninjutsu. It's not ninjutsu. It's ninjutsu.
Interesting.
Because he wanted everybody to understand that it was his interpretation of ninjutsu.
Okay. Did you actually spend a lot of time training with Frank Dux, though?
No, not at all. Not at all.
Was he just not there, or was he training other students?
He was there and he wasn't there. But you gotta understand that at the level that he was at, he had black belts that he had trained, first generation and second generation. So why should he have to teach anybody? Although I trained under him a few times, but for the most part, his high-ranking students who were black belts were my instructors.
Opinion on Frank Dux as a martial artist. What do you think about him?
Oh, in his heyday, he was no joke.
Okay.
He was no freaking joke. And even now, coming from the standpoint of his theories and his concepts and so forth, when it's applied to what it is that you're doing, it's off the chain. I mean, you can't be replaced. It's very, very scientific, but it's not ninjutsu. I repeat, it's not ninjutsu.
The whole emphasis on me was I was a fake ninja. Here's the irony of the whole thing. I was the one turning around saying nobody's a ninja. It's all fake because there's no such thing as a ninja martial art.
When you say that, do you mind if I ask one real quick?
Sure.
When you say it's not ninjutsu, are you talking about the techniques, the fighting techniques? Or are you talking about the mental concept of what a ninja actually is?
First of all, I love your questions, by the way. First of all, there's no fighting techniques that just strictly ninjutsu. There isn't. Okay, we're talking about samurai who were ninja and vice versa. These techniques on the battlefield, akijitsu, jiu-jitsu, many different aspects of the martial arts were applied, judo, you name it. But keep in mind that these were ingrained into the fighting warriors, into what they were doing. So it wasn't a set techniques that were applied to just ninjutsu practitioners by themselves. Ninjutsu in itself is just a spycraft. It's basically espionage, infiltration, assassination, and so forth. All these things dealing with spycraft.
Like the CIA to a certain extent. Basically,
well, yes. If you want to go universal, during any warring periods throughout the world, everybody had their equivalents of ninjutsu. Japanese just have their monopoly on spycraft. No, you had different warring sections throughout the world who specialized in maybe 2 or 3 people doing what a platoon couldn't do.
I have another question related to Frank Dux. So
you're just really on that Kool-Aid, aren't you?
Well, not so much on the Kool-Aid, just like
messing with you.
Because you're a black belt in that system. You've trained in the system, and I've heard people that actually train with them. They say like the guy knows his stuff. Why do you think he has a bad reputation, though? It's primarily online, right? YouTube videos, forums, stuff like that.
No comment.
No comment. Okay.
Well, you can't tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man. No time to talk.
Fair enough. He's always a controversial figure, for good or bad. But an interesting one. So, didn't you go to Japan after training in Dux Ryu, I believe? Because you wanted to.
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
In 1996, after receiving my first Dan in Dux Ryu, I started teaching. I was teaching at USC. I was teaching for different subleasing a couple of martial arts schools around town here in LA. And then Dux and I fell out for the first time, and I decided I needed to find out where the real quote unquote ninjutsu was. And I'd heard about Hasumi Sensei, and I decided to try.
David, not to cut you off, why did you guys have a falling out for the first time at that point in time?
No comment.
Okay. All right, let's go to Japan then.
So we're in Japan. So it's my first time there, and I was just amazed at the people there, the culture, the food. And keep in mind, my taste when it comes to food, I basically ate American food while I was in Japan for the most part. Love the women though. Love the women. So I started training in Osaka, at a place in Osaka, and this is my first introduction into ninjutsu, being abroad, of course. And I trained in Tokyo a couple of times and came back, and that was my first impression of ninjutsu when I first went to Japan for the first time, and thereafter 4 different times after.
Can I
Now,
ask you
what
a
did they
question?
think-
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
What did they think about your skill set? Because
I'm so glad you asked that. Because I don't want to come off as being negative, and I'm not negative, but I'm not going to lie. My first introduction into ninjutsu was very negative when it came to the Bujinkan. They had heard, unfortunately, it comes with Dux Ryu. They had heard that I had trained under Frank Dux, and they figured I was coming to Japan just for opportunistic pictures and so forth with Sumi Sensei. So they had me all wrong, of course. Mm-hmm. So I got a very nasty letter from them. Here I go with the letters again. All right. People like writing me letters. So I got a letter stating that if I come there, I'll be considered to be a charlatan and that everybody will know and don't even bother to come. And by the way, have I tried to blowfish this time of the year? That was a sarcastic remark.
God.
Yeah, exactly. It was sarcastic remarks stating that because blowfish was poisonous during that time of the year. So this person was very nasty. Wow. So I said, okay. So before I went for the first time, I wrote a letter to another instructor out there. I think he was a Daishian. And I wrote him, let him know if this is the way potential students are treated and with the rudeness that this guy did, then I don't want to be a part of the Bujinkan. Mm-hmm. Do you know this guy wrote me back again to state that he apologized for the way he treated me and I'm welcome there and please forgive him and all this stuff, and he'll see me when I get there. I go there that first time and I did my thing, I did my training and so forth. Of course, the way Dux Ryu move and the way the Bujinkan members move is totally different. So I had to get used to that. I came back to America and I got a letter from the same creep. And do you know he had the nerve to say, I moved stiff and you don't like the way I moved? And I said to myself, why didn't you say something to me when I was there? Why would you even, you're a freaking coward. He could have said anything negative to me while I was there. He couldn't wait till I get back to America to write me an email.
Now, can I ask a quick question about this? So I studied Goju-Ryu karate for many years, right? And then I actually was able to live in Korea for a year. And now I'm asking you a question. Did you find it? This was something that kind of I realized when I went to Asia, is I didn't truly understand Goju karate, the concepts of the way it was created, not the techniques as much as why we did the things we did, our rituals, until I understood Asian culture. Would you say to truly understand being a ninja, you have to experience Asian culture?
Well, first of all, being a ninja in this day and time is obsolete. You ask me. I don't think a ninja exists in this day and time. Are there ninjutsu practitioners? Yes, they are. But as far as a ninja, no, I don't think they exist. I've been to Philippines. I've been to Korea. I've been to Japan. And in fact, when I went to the Philippines, to answer your question, I was looking for Eskrima, Kali Eskrima. Although I had learned the American movement, I wanted to learn some traditional stuff.
Are you a Jeet Kune Do guy, by the way? Is that why you were going? Were you a Jeet Kune Do or just?
Well, I just love mixing things up. I love mixing it up, So I go to the Philippines and come to find out they don't do that. That's not something that they do on a regular basis. In their school, in their schooling, as far as like what we do in basketball or football or baseball, That's what they do as far as their curriculum is concerned. It's Arnis. Arnis is a part of their curriculum. It's not something that you will see at a dojo or a school, what have you. We're the only ones, Americans, who embrace that. Same thing with Japan. When I got to Japan, ninjutsu was something that was considered to be manga, or they don't take it too serious. You know, they have tourist attractions, of course, but we're the only ones that's all ninja this and ninja that, and you know.
When you came back, I know you said you were in Japan, I believe 4 times, but when you came back and primarily stayed in America, did you find a Bujinkan school to train at?
Yes, I did. I was very fortunate to find an instructor by the name of Sensei David Dahl, and I trained with him for 3 years and got my first Dan ranked under him. And keep in mind, this instructor, Sensei David Dahl, was very prolific in regards to his methods of training. He really truly believed in aliveness, and he really truly believed in pressure testing your techniques. That's something that's unheard of with the Bujinkan. Okay, that's just something that they don't do. And he got a lot of flack for that. Because he was breaking the protocol when it came to. And keep in mind, nowadays in the Bujinkan, you're going to see a lot more sparring and what have you. But for the most part, that's not something that they do when it comes to aliveness and so forth. In fact, he had an instructor come down and try to embarrass us by making some kind of point to show that we should not be learning aliveness at that level and pressure testing our techniques. So he put me on the floor with this guy. Keep in mind, I'm just a first Q. First Q, that means I'm very close to getting my first Dan. So he puts me on the floor with this guy. This guy's a fifth Dan in the Bujinkan. And I said, David, go for it. So the guy comes in there and he kind of tried to knock me around a little bit, right? And I didn't get the memo. So I'm just trying to survive. So I cold-cocked the guy. Cold-cocked him. I mean, and I gave him a good one. He stops the match and says he wants to, there's no more. He stops the match. And I'm like, okay. So I guess David gave him that look like, see, it does work.
And you already trained in Dux Ryu for such a long time too. So even if you were just on your way to first Dan in Bujinkan,
I wasn't on spring chicken, of course, but the most part is he knew what he was doing by putting me on the floor with that guy. And of course, 2 weeks later, I was ranked in my first Dan. I don't want to say I got that rank off of knocking that guy's block off, but it is what it is, right?
How would you define yourself as a martial artist, if somebody asked? Because I know you're Dux Ryu, Bujinkan. Sounds like you got some training elsewhere, but how would you just define yourself? Would you say I'm a Dux Ryu guy, I'm a Bujinkan guy, or what would you say?
I would say that I'm a student of life.
Okay.
I'm a student of life. I use what works. I teach what works. I don't try to sugarcoat anything. If it works, use it.
Kind of like Jeet Kune Do then.
Bruce called it the classical mess out the window, right?
Yeah. The grave. He had the little grave, remember?
Yeah.
Classical man, something like that.
Yes,
something like you mind if I ask you a technique question? So
please,
you really so I spend a lot of time with Terrible Tim Witherspoon, considered one of the greatest Philly shell masters, one of the founders, godfathers of the Philly shell. And I run a YouTube channel. We train constantly. We're always around each other. David got to train with him a bit. And you were saying something interesting. I'm going to tell you why. When you talked about, and this I've not heard a lot of martial arts people say at all. When you talked about this hand not leaving the body, right? Now, we approach the jab differently. You know, in the shell, you're tapping at it. But you said you do it a little, you have your own. But you said you never, you don't defy leaving the hand, getting the hand too far from the body.
It's
and
not
that
necessary. This works as an antenna. This is like
now
an
is that from Dux Ryu or is that from boxing?
No. That's from Dux Ryu.
Really? Because that
Yes.
is very, very Philly. A Philly shell, a lot of people say, no, the Philly shell doesn't exist. It's a concept. It's not a defensive position. Like people think it's a shell is like it's like you're in an egg and everything is always tight. You're never reaching out. You never
Well,
reach. You're
and keep in
always
mind,
wanting in.
keep in mind, this is not just this too. We're talking footwork as well. Footwork implemented, mixed in with that. So I'm not saying this is going to work by itself. Your footwork, your angling, the angling, your footwork, all that stuff comes into play when it comes to utilizing offensive and defensive techniques.
I thought that was interesting. So, just some little credibility there. I don't know anything about
appreciate
you,
Yes, sir.
but
I'm honored.
you just said something there that Tim would be very, very rarely do you even hear boxers talk about that barrier. You're never out here and we're in the box in the Philly shell. We never reach the block ever. So,
To find out more about what David Richardson teaches, which is American Ninjutsu Warrior Concepts, make sure to check out the link in the description below.